we as a society we have conditioned ourselves at the expense of our children's safety. And when I say safety, and this is a controversial way of saying it, but I really believe we have to break the habit of being okay with that which is not acceptable. We really need to break the habit of being okay with things that we think we've just grown to accept them. Yes, we have grown to accept that it is okay to have pork. We have grown to accept that it is okay to have rushed lunches. We have grown to accept that it is okay to have rushed toilet breaks. We have grown to accept that it is okay to pressure our children in the most critical growth periods of their time, psychologically and spiritually, emotionally, to condition them that if they do not perform, they are failures. These sound like harsh words, but reality check. This is what is happening. You don't get 20 to 30 homeschoolers a week joining the Home Education Queensland page and registering. Everything's hunky-dory in the mainstream system. And COVID was a catalyst. That's all it was. So that tells me that systemically we have had issues for a long time. We've just accepted them and we've been okay with them because we fall very easily as humans into the slipstream. I call them the slipstreams. The biggest slipstream is you get born, you go to kindy, you go to school, you go to high school, you either go to TAFE or university, then maybe you travel the world or you get married, then you maybe do some higher education or, coursework. You get a job, you climb the ladder in your job, you retire. In America, they call it your 401k. Here it's superannuation. And then you die. And that's the slipstream. And we wonder, that's why I'm so big on systems thinking, because if you don't change the system, I can't remember who, maybe it was Einstein, I think, who said, it's insanity to do the same thing and expect a different result. Well, here we are. Here we are. The reason why I feel really passionately about starting a learning institution of sorts that looks nothing like the current school is because our children face problems that we haven't been able to fix yet. And that's going to take a different way of thinking. It's called a paradigm shift. And when you have a paradigm shift, it means it is a total visionary change. It is a total shift in the way you view things. Now, a lot of people over the past decade have called for the reform of education. You can't reform it. It's so big and so institutionalized. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the decentralization of education. You're already starting to see it with the homeschooling community, and that's just one. It's the micro schools, and this isn't just when you talk about paradigms. This is a blueprint overlay of what humanity is doing to self-correct. We are going back to communities rather than competition. It's mimicked in nature. Nature does not compete. Nature cooperates. We are going back to communities like the holistic community has been doing this for a really long time. Organics, we need to rebuild the minerals in our land. Our relationship with the earth is broken. It needs to be re-nourished. No longer are these concepts touchy-feely. I'm just going to go hug a tree here and get my hippie on. These concepts, heart-mind coherence, these concepts are being discussed in boardrooms, and so they should be, because we are all the same and we need to operate within the same ecosystem. And so what's the one thing we haven't really tackled yet in a vulnerable, honest, courageous discussion way is education.
So true.
It needs to change. It needs to change.
I can't agree with you more. How old's the education system?
It's still geared towards an industrial system. our technology has grown exponentially and changed exponentially, and the education system is still the same. You know, we still teach in silos. When you have a look at, you know, when they talk about high performing teams in corporations, the number one thing they talk about after establishing trust is breaking down those silos. You know, your marketing department needs to be involved in your strategic direction of your company. This is the same thing here in education. You know, we need to do more than cross curriculum. We need to teach project based. You know, I can't tell you the number of times that that I meet ex-students or have had discussions with total strangers. I actually had a discussion with a gentleman a month ago. I love camping. I love getting out in the outdoors. And he was a cabinet maker. And he said to me, you know what, it's not just unis and schools that teach you things that you never use. He said, I went to TAFE and they taught us all about some, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but, you know, some very ornate Victoriana, you know, history of cabinet making. And he said, you know, cabinet making is basically IKEA these days. It's bolts together. That's what you do. And he said, I never used it. And we had this conversation. I said, yeah, we need to be teaching our kids about entrepreneurship. Let's talk about tax. Let's talk about financial management and money management and how to run a business. These are the things that gentleman said that he could have used, you know, in his business, as opposed to looking it up on YouTube, you know, or undertaking a course. I mean, they are those things I feel are sorely missing. And I think that, again, not taking a dig at the curriculum, because I put together a work program for my daughter and I love it. It's fantastic. And I use the Australian curriculum. I picked out the bits that were best, but, you know, we don't sit there and smash away at maths, because she's the fastest feedback loop I have in my life. If there's something wrong with me, she's my barometer. Yeah. She will tell me straight away, you know. So you can't get away with much with being a homeschooler. I don't think it's the best teacher to student ratio, isn't it? But we need to rebuild our communities, Addie. We need to focus on project-based learning, and that looks nothing like what anybody is doing at the moment. Potentially, I've heard of a school that was started by a Twitter executive down in Melbourne called Luminaire. It's called now Luminaire. And they, from what I've been told, are project-based learning. But, you know, this calls for systemic change, not change where people can afford it. And that's another concern that I have, is that, you know, it's fine that Elon Musk has a school and that Facebook, some Facebook execs in Silicon Valley started off education, but then we have the question of data and how shall I use it, the term, basically the ethical use of data. That was the word I was trying to think of, the ethical use of data. So, you know, you would be really reticent to start off a school with any tech firm, because AI looms large. It's already here in a lot of it's already here on our phone and a lot of our devices. If you're on Facebook, and you've liked pages, you'll get the automatic messaging, chatbots, etc., etc. Yes. The question is, again, data is valuable. Data is the new currency.
Anything else. It is
100%.
Commodity.
It really is. I mean, there, and look what you can do with it. Just as again, opening another tab, there's an anecdote of I've forgotten his name, a professor from Griffith University on the Gold Coast who predicted the Trump election, and he also predicted the Australian elections. So this is available if people are interested. They can go online and just Google that. And he did it using social media scrapes of Facebook and Twitter.
Oh,
yep.
wow.
Yep. Yeah, and his where they store their information is on the Gold Coast at Griffith University. There you go. Data is valuable, and data needs to be, and we can still use AI. We, in fact, when we talk about twice exceptional children, I think maybe that's the politically correct term for children with borderline learning difficulties and learning difficulties like Asperger's, autism. Yes, I really feel that there is definitely a place for technology and AI in there for fast-tracked learning. Why isn't that being used en masse? That really, there's a massive solution, technological solution for that. And that's not saying that we don't have humans. I'm not saying that at all, but we need to integrate the best of what we have. And when you talk about it like that, it's really easy.
Really what?
It's really easy.